What is up, my friend? Welcome to the Anthony John Amix podcast. This is episode numero seis. Seis? Yep, that's six. That is what it is. In this episode, I'm bringing you one of my best homies, Jonathan Heston, to share with you the 4 steps to adding 6 figures to your business and then also scaling to 7 figures and beyond. And this is a time-proven framework that has really been forged in the trenches while coaching some of the best and the most elite in the industry. So you'll definitely want to listen to this episode because the goodness that is going to flow out of the mouth of Jonathan Heston, I'm telling you, it has the potential to change your life and your business for the better. And man, Jonathan is this just incredible, amazing human being. In fact, he's one of my favorite people on the planet because he's like the wizard behind the curtain for many of the top producers that you see in the high-ticket coaching arena and the course creator space. He's the strategist behind a lot of what I do. He's the co-facilitator of one of my deep dive transformational events called the Uprising Adventure. He's a best-selling author, and on top of all of that, he's just like an amazing husband, an amazing father, and just like, man, this amazing friend. He's just like a really, really good dude, you know? I mean, he's the complete package when it comes to being a married man who has a business and a family life, like just firing on all cylinders. So with that being said, like, let's cue that intro.
Welcome to the Anthony John Amix podcast, the one and only podcast designed to help you become unstoppable in life and business. My name is Anthony John Amix. My friends call me AJ, and my goal with this podcast is to help you remember who you truly are so you can maintain your center in the chaos, embody your potential, and unlock freedom in your life and business. That being said, let's get into today's show.
All right, welcome back. Before I bring on today's guest, I want to let you know about a free community I've created with Jonathan to help entrepreneurs break through to new levels of income and impact. It's called Shift, and you can join that for free at www.ajamix.com/community. And you're going to want to do that because it's full of great training on marketing, sales, and mindset. And man, people have told us that we should be charging for how much value that we're giving away for free each week. So again, you can go grab that, go join ajamix.com/community. It's 100% free, so make sure you make that happen today. Now, with that being said, let's bring on the master messenger, the wizard behind the curtain, the coach to the elite players, Mr. Jonathan Heston.
Mr. Heston, what up, brother?
What's up, man? How's it going?
Awesome, dude. I get to come and do another episode from this beautiful kitchen here in Brașov, Romania that always looks like a bathroom. It's crazy. But it's all good. So it happens when you're moving like every month to a different place. The background just is what it is if you're watching this on YouTube.
I'm in a co-working space with the Iron Giant behind me.
Your Iron Giant's awesome.
We got people working around me, so there might be some background noise. But
Perfect.
I'm excited, man.
Awesome, dude. Well, dude, I'm glad that you're on the podcast. You're one of my favorite people on the planet. I tell you this all the time. And what's crazy to me is a lot of people probably haven't heard of you, dude. I'm like, you like fly under the radar, yet you're the wizard behind the curtain. I mean, lots of people do know of you, but a lot more people don't know of your genius. But yet you work with a lot of the top movers and shakers in the expert industry, coaching industry. So what are some of the coolest things that you're working on now?
Yeah, man, thanks. I like to go deep with a handful of people. So coolest things. Man, I'm really excited. I'm jamming with Moran with acquisitions.com. We're really working on scaling that right now. Lots of paid traffic and just got a sales team going, got a setter team going. Really excited about that. Solving some big problems right there.
Awesome.
I'm excited to be working with Austin Holt with Because Marriage Matters, Austin and Rachel Holt. Man, we just, they came up with this awesome connection card deck, which is like this game that you can play with your wife or your spouse or your partner. And it just like has amazing questions that like really in like 5, 10, 15 minutes bring people together. And it's super fast and it's fun. And it's like, I'm a guy and I like it. So
I can't wait to get it. I know it's waiting for me in Dallas. I pick it up in like 3 weeks or something. I can't wait to dive into it, man.
Dude, it's awesome. Chloe and I love it. So we just started doing paid traffic to that, and the numbers working really good so far.
Awesome.
People are taking the bumps and everything. So that's exciting. Working on a book, business stuff, man.
So good.
And going deep on life stuff too with some people. So yeah.
Awesome, brother. So today, dude, we're going to be talking about the 4 steps to adding 6 figures to a business and then scaling to 7 figures and beyond, because that's really what you help a lot of people do. And I know like what we're going to be getting into today is going to be probably very different from what a lot of people have heard. But one thing that I do really, really appreciate and I really love about you is you're 100% real. You're 100% just fucking honest and like open and vulnerable all the time. It's been my experience. And so before we hop into the framework, it's going to like totally blow people's minds. I want to dive into your story for a bit because I want people to see what it has taken up to this point for you to kind of have the wisdom that you have, right? So this game of creating freedom for yourself and leading your family, dude, it's been a journey. So what was life and what was a business like for you prior to kind of discovering this 4-step framework?
Oh man, big question. Yeah. So I was homeschooled my whole life. So that was fun. Did debate, homeschool debate, learned public speaking there. So got married fairly young. Chloe and I have been married for 12 years.
How old were you when you got married?
Have 2 kids. Oh man, like 22.
Nice. That's awesome.
Something like that. So yeah, Chloe and I have 2 kids. Gideon is 4. Charlotte is 8. Really my journey, at 13, an entrepreneur in my church actually really invested in me. He got me a John Maxwell book. He got me a Napoleon Hill book. And he was basically like, dude, you're a leader. Read these. And kind of like around that time, I didn't grow up in an entrepreneur family, but around that time, I was like, man, I want to be an entrepreneur. I don't want to work for someone else. I read those books and I started a lawn care company and that was miserable. I made a lot of money through my teens, but it was golden handcuffs. And it wasn't my zone of genius. And I eventually got depressed because like at that point in time, I just assumed entrepreneurship was like a service industry. You want to work with your hands, you know.
Sure.
My dad grew up on a farm, so we kind of had a farm for part of my childhood. So just, you know, good, honest, hard work, show up and do it, work with machines and tools and stuff. So, man, by the time I hit 20, I wasn't fulfilled at all. And a lot of other stuff happened in my teens, but basically, I was like, there has to be a better way. So I looked to internet marketing. Like I found internet marketing, I found copywriting. I really got my chops there in copywriting, webinar stuff. Just dove into the internet marketing world. Started doing money and all that stuff, but still wasn't happy. And that's where I really dove into the personal development side. I think a lot of people, they run what's I call the success equation, where it's like, hey, I'll be worthy of love and respect when I X, Y, and Z. And that X, Y, you know, that equation might be, you know, X is, you know, make $1 million. Y could be like have an amazing family. Z could be like be a good Christian. And their entire life they're chasing that thing. So for me, that was definitely, I want to be a successful entrepreneur. But I think really part of the game of life is stepping back and like realizing that success equation is bullshit. Like, like you're here, like you already have the gift of life. Like you're breathing, you're conscious, you have this awareness, you're experiencing. Like you could have been a rock, you could have been stardust, you could have been a tree, but for whatever reason, the stardust that is you is breathing, it's conscious, has one race. You've already been given the gift. There's nothing to prove, there's nothing to defend. And when you can start from operating from that place of not just the gift of life, but also the power of life, I think the rest of stuff, like seek first the kingdom and everything will be added unto you. Like to me, that kingdom is that realization of the grace and the gift that life is.
That's awesome.
There's a lot more to it. So for me, I got to go on that journey because I was just depressed. I wasn't happy. I was, you know, young, married, business stuff wasn't always working out. Like, and so I've been through the fire, man. Like, I have a book called The Unlimited Self, and I think the introduction or the first chapter, I really dive into like kind of what this state of things were, like a car that has 400,000 miles on it, and like living paycheck to paycheck, and just like really being in it as a young husband and as a newly married couple, and Chloe supporting me like, yeah, you got this, keep going, but it not always being easy, and sometimes having to go get a job and stuff like that. So yeah, man, it's been quite a journey, just lots of years and years of showing up and doing the work, not just, I don't mean that in a shame, guilt-driven way, but showing up and doing the work as it relates to your skills of business, and more importantly, doing the work to heal and bring a ton of love and grace to yourself, and tap into your infinite self, tap into your higher power, if you will, or tap into the deeper truths of who you are outside of your ego and outside of your guilt and shame and your mind games.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Was it just like the money piece for you and the struggle around money that was kind of the catalyst for you diving into the personal development and you diving into the really the deep stuff that moved the needle for you, or was it something else?
No, not at all. Like to me, no, it wasn't just the money piece. I mean, that was part of the challenge, but I knew it was way deeper stuff. It was just like, my relationships. Like you can all like the way you relate with others, especially those that are close to your heart,
Yeah,
especially those that you care about, is a really good reflection and barometer and thermostat of like how you're relating with yourself on a deep level
mm,
and how much you have your potential cap. A lot of people can like crush it in business for a long time, but if like I've been here on different levels, right? So I'm not saying this out of judgment, but like there's walls up around their heart, and they
sure.
don't let people into that because as soon as they do, it's like their Achilles heel, and they know that like they can only sustain one ball in the air at a time. And there's just a whole nother level of fulfillment and excitement and peace and joy on the other side. It's not easy,
Yeah.
but I think like once you're on your deathbed, or once I'm on my deathbed, I'm going to look back and just feel way more. Um, yeah, I lived the way that I was called to live,
Awesome, man.
um, the way my heart wanted to live on a deeper level by stepping into those uncomfortable areas.
So since you stepped into those uncomfortable areas time and time and time again, I mean, every day, right? And you've really kind of discovered this thing that you call the freedom flow framework, which we're going to be diving into and unpacking everything that's about. But what is life and business like on the other side of that, where, you went from success equation driving to now being like, I'm good, I have nothing to prove, nothing to defend. You're definitely just creating as an overflow of your gift of life, I guess, like your purpose. What's life like on the other side of that?
First of all, there's not a magic pill. There's not a magic solution. So I don't want to sit here and be like, hey, I've got it all figured out. Like I don't. Um, there's tools and there's principles, and if you leverage them and dive deep into them and trust them, they will pay off for you long term. And this framework is my attempts to capture like what has been working for me, what has worked for my clients on different levels, and to kind of capture some of those principles in like an easy to understand way, and easy to visualize way. But at the same time, like for me, I'm navigating storms right now that like I wouldn't have been able to navigate 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I'm happy, I'm fulfilled, I'm at peace. Um, I like myself.
Yeah, yeah,
I get when I decide I want to do something, I create it. I open doors easily. Work isn't tough. It's not hard. Um, there's money's a whole lot different. We've moved to a place that we love. We're in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, in the nature, in the mountains. Moved halfway across the country. I love who I am as a father, as a husband. Um, so I don't have everything figured out. I don't, and really things are just beginning on different levels. And so I think humility is like my favorite definition of humility is from Christopher, and I believe you might be having him on your podcast, or you have on your podcast.
yeah.
Um,
Episode
Amazing
4.
guy. Yeah, amazing brother. But he talks about humility. I think he's the first place I heard this definition, where humility is openness to learning. So the more that the more I step into humility, the more I realize, the more I know, the more I don't know. So I'm not going to sit here and say I know all the answers, but I do know some core principles that if I share them, try them on, if they work for you, amazing. If not, then let
Awesome.
me know what is working for you.
So let's dive into these principles. And this is definitely a common thread with the guests so far in the show. It's principles, 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 principles. So I hope people are picking up on that. So it seems like a lot of people in the industry, they're focusing on pretty much 3 of your 4 steps, or 3 of the 4 principles, right? But many people are kind of missing the boat on this crucial first step. So we're going to get into all 4 steps of the Freedom Flow framework, but let's start with the first steps. Like, what is the first step called, and why is it so important for entrepreneurs to address it?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So let me just give you the 30,000 foot view
Cool.
of what it is, and then we can dive into each one. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that's great.
Cool, awesome. So there's basically 4 steps, and these words encompass a whole lot of different ideas and principles and concepts, but I think simplicity is powerful. So 4 things: shift, and as a business owner, you want to be thinking about these 4 things: shift, sell, systematize, and scale. Like if you're really wanting to break through that solo entrepreneur level and get to the level where you're scaling, get to the level of true freedom, where you're not like hustling all the time, you're actually in a place of freedom. You're not just trading time for money, but and more importantly, I think freedom isn't just, a lot of, especially in the coaching industry, people equate money to freedom. But if you're building a brand that is you and relies upon you all the time, you actually don't necessarily have a business like the Robert Kiyosaki framework.
Cash flow
Cash flow
quadrant.
quadrant. Yeah, like you're still self-employed, right? Like you're not actually in a business. A business is an asset that is working for you and generating value in the world with or without you. And it's something that like you could ideally be able to pick up and just like sell to someone else if you wanted to. So going back to the 4 steps, we got shift, we have sell, we have systemize, we have scale. And really, this is a cycle. It's almost like an upward spiral where you are cycling through these 4 things over and over and over again as you're growing and expanding. And when I look at, I've coached, I've supported, I am supporting people through all the different levels. People that are doing 7 figures plus. We got people that are just starting out with their first offer, just closing their first few clients. I've helped hundreds of people from the variety, like throughout the entire spectrum. And one thing that I've noticed is when you realize that this is just a process and a system and a cycle, it's really helpful, because it's not like you're going to shift and then arrive, or sell and then arrive, or systemize and arrive, or scale and arrive. It's like you're going through all 4 over and over and over. And the nuances of how those look at different stages are different, and I'll speak to those in a second. But just being aware that this is happening is really, really helpful. So let's talk about each one. So the first one is shift. And shifting is, I really believe, just like your eye lets in everything that you see. If you imagined that your eye had a black and white filter on it, so all you saw was gray tones, you didn't see any color, and you heard about you want red, you want blue, and you went and tried to find something that was red and blue, and you talked to people, I'm like, hey, can I buy something that's red and blue? Or can I travel over here and find something that's red and blue? Like, you're never going to be able to experience red and blue until you realize that, oh, I have a black and white filter. I'm wearing glasses that turn everything gray or black and white or whatever. Like, by the same token, as a business owner, everything in your business is flowing through you. And what you don't know, and what you know is the stuff that you can control. Like, if you don't know that you have an element of control on, because you can plead ignorance. If you know, then you have an element of control, because you know what you're doing to a degree. But as you're stepping into the edge of your comfort zone and you're playing on your edge, right? What's at the edge of your comfort zone is the stuff that you don't even know that you don't know. That's the stuff at the edge of your comfort zone. And if you are changing and stepping into territory that you have never experienced, and that you didn't grow up in, you don't have knowledge around, and you're at the edge of your comfort zone and you're doing new things that you haven't ever done, one of the first things that has to happen is your internal shifts. Your internal understanding about what is possible for you, your internal diving into what you don't know, and more importantly, diving into what you don't even know that you don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And like playing in that space and being able to have the internal capacity, fortitude, and integrity, and being able to source your joy, happiness, and peace in that storm, in that place of discomfort, if you will, in that place where your quote unquote ego can't necessarily control what's going on. And so for me, leadership really starts internally. It starts with the ability to have the awareness of what is going on, both your conscious and subconscious on different levels, and have the power to make the decisions to shift that relationship with yourself and with others and with your situation and your perspective, to shift those things to find the path to the result that you want, without the procrastination, without the information gathering, without the self-doubt, without the whiffle and waffling, but like making the decision and taking the action. I mean, it's really easy knowledge. We all know what to do, right? The challenge is doing what we know.
So true. So true, man. And before we hop into the second step, like I want to like kind of unpack this a little bit more and really kind of anchor, like, why is this so important for entrepreneurs to get? Because I feel like there's a handful of people somewhat talking about this in the marketplace right now. They're just using different words like self-sabotage or your unconscious belief patterns or your thought patterns or your mindset or whatever. And I feel like, I don't know, my story is, and maybe this is my projection on the marketplace, maybe, is that people just discount it. They're like, yeah, that sounds good. I'll get to it one day. But, let me go sell some shit. Let me go systematize some shit. Let me go, scale a business to whatever. And then, maybe when it's convenient, I'll get to that weird unconscious shifting who you are, identity stuff, But I feel like they're not taking it serious. So why is it so important? Because I see people all the time, they justify where they're at rather than doing this deep work that is the movement, the needle, the mover of the needle, so to speak.
Yeah, man. So it's not sexy. So the reticular activator in the brain. So there's two. I have two really high values. I have this inner game stuff, right? And then I have like business and does business work. Like, do you get results? Is it measurable, tangible, and all those things? So let's talk about the marketing side. Like the reticular activator in the brain likes specifics. It likes details. It likes stuff that's tangible. So if you're looking at something that's like, hey, increase your sales by $100,000 every month, that's going to be very enticing if you believe that money is the issue, right? And a lot of people look at the problem and they don't look in the mirror. They look at like, hey, what do I want? Oh, I don't have this money. I want cash flow. I want leads. I want whatever. And so like, it's very easy, myself included, all of us, it's very easy for us to go to this place of like, oh, there's something tangible, measurable, specific. Let's go there. The inner game stuff, like it's really hard to put tangible, measurable, specific stuff on inner shifts, right? Like we can talk about really specific examples of like, cool. Like, can you have a sweaty palm conversation with your lover and come out on this other side more connected? Or do you have a sweaty palm conversation and you both shut down and then there's just like this dead space between you, and then you feel alone and she feels alone or whatever the situation might be? Like, it's really tough to paint specifics, or like walking into the room and owning that environment, owning that space, not showing up to prove or defend anything, but just being you and like bringing your genius to the table, whether it's accepted or not. Leading the room, being the person in the room that like leads the room. Like, it's tough to really to paint specifics around that. However, generally when people realize that this is the truth is when they really chase the strategies and the tactics, and either they make it, quote unquote, and they're miserable, they're burned out, they're unfulfilled, they're not happy, and they want to burn everything that they worked so hard to get to the ground, or they like change the game. It's like, oh, it's not, I'm not going to be happy at 1 million. I need 10 million. Right. And that burnout phase is normally when they're like, or they just kind of listen to wisdom and look at what everyone who actually has, like, if you look at the people that actually have what you want, I would invite you to consider that it's not just about the money or the status or the stuff. It's about how they relate with other people and how they relate with themselves. And like all the stuff, like we just want it because we believe it'll make us feel a certain way. So if we can hack that feeling, imagine how much more powerful we can create from that place, and really find what's true to us in our alignment, not what the world says we should do, not what other people think that we should do. So that's my first take. My second take on why this, like, a lot of people get stuck on this is because they just think they're doing it. This is one of those things, because it is kind of not as tangible and it's a little bit harder to understand. Like, there's catch-all terms in the marketplace that people just believe that they're doing it. Like, oh yeah, I work on my mindset. So positive affirmations or journaling or meditation or whatever. So it's like, oh, it's a mindset thing. Yeah, I need it. Breath work. Like, there's just different things where people are like, oh no, I understand this. I'm already doing it. I'm already done the work on it. And yes, all that stuff is good, but there's just so many deeper layers on it that I would just invite people to consider that if you're not in a place of amazing trust and respect for yourself, in a place of amazing power and decisiveness and certainty as you're creating, then perhaps the vehicles to get there, such as like the catch-all, like mindset or positive affirmations or lots of meditation, whatever, perhaps there's more to it than just what some of those, Tony Robbins-ish type of things are really proposing. So.
Yeah, so good. I know I'm at a place, man, where I'm finding myself almost once a year, like setting a target in this area of my life where I'm like, how could I dive into an insecurity of mine in a very powerful experiential way, where sometimes I'll make an investment to go to the event. And it, for me, since, for those who listen to episode number 2 in human design, my authority is sacral. So I'll figure out what's a fuck yes and fuck no for me. And if it's a fuck yes, I just go do it. And often I'll spend, $5,000, $2,000, $3,000, but I don't even know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like some people are like, well, what are you going to do when you get there? I don't know. Well, what are you going to learn? I have no idea. Like it's totally just diving into the unknown. But I do find for myself time and time again, it makes my life better. It makes my marriage better. It makes my friendship with people like you deeper and closer. It makes me more money. Like it translates into more business results. And so for me, it's almost kind of this game of like, okay, where's the dark pit we get to go explore this year? It's really fun, man. It's really fun.
I love it. I'm the same way, man. And I honor you for that. Like, it's so true. And I mean, I think that leads to the third reason, right? So if the first reason is just like, it's not sexy, but the second reason is it's hard to understand the tangibility of how powerful this is. Like, but here's the thing, I'll say this, like on that first reason, it's hard to understand the tangibility. It makes sense though. If you change and transform yourself, you will change and transform everything you relate to. Period. End of story. It's the most powerful lever that you can pull in your business and your life and everything. The second thing though, is like this belief that like, hey, we're already doing it, right? There's that. Then the third, and I think you just nailed it, is that like, it's scary, man.
Yeah.
It's scary. It's like, our pride doesn't want to die. Our ego doesn't want to die. We don't want to go to places that like feel painful or scary or unknown. And it's the true playing on the area where you don't know what you don't know. It's the true stepping into that on a much deeper level than turning on an ad set that you don't know if it's going to perform. Because this is identity level stuff. Like this is stuff that like we form our identity around subconsciously and consciously. So yeah, man, I honor you for stepping into the fear, man.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just trying to embody the message as much as possible. One, because I believe it wholeheartedly. It's transformed my life. So what I'm hearing you saying is the shifting thing. It is shifting the way that you see and think about the world, but it's also shifting not just on a yearly basis, on a daily basis, monthly basis, quarterly basis. Anytime you're hitting a pattern, some feedback that's not serving you.
Oh man,
so it's like, man, I need to shift who I'm being, which is maybe a capacity to hold stress. Maybe it's the ability to communicate things that trigger us. Figuring out why we're so triggered. Which I talked about this with Christopher in episode number 4, going back to childhood stuff, but it could be even trauma in our young adult life or stuff that happens today or tomorrow.
Totally.
So it's cool, dude. So that's step 1, shifting who we are. So what is the second step that you talk about? Sell. What do you mean by that?
Cool. So if you have a business, if you want to have a business, you want financial freedom, then having the control, if you will, or the ownership of providing value to the marketplace in exchange for funds, in exchange for finances. So selling is really scaling that ability to offer value to the marketplace and get paid for it. There's a lot to that, like especially if you're first starting out in business. There's a lot of skills, there's a lot of internal shifts that you have to make. And I want to go back to shift really quick because yes, it's not just about this like do it once a year thing. It's like the skill of having that awareness 24, like during your entire experience of life, having that awareness ongoing, and then using that awareness to shift back into a place of power consistently over and over, day after day, hour after hour. So when something derails you from a place of your power, your core power, your certainty, all those things, having that awareness, moving through that and then getting back to that place. So an example, like if you haven't ever been around entrepreneurship and you're not accustomed to owning your value and selling your value, then obviously you're going to have to shift your perspective, your mindset, your certainty, your capacity, your self-respect, and all of those things. You're going to have to shift a whole bunch of stuff internally to be able to even go out into the marketplace and sell yourself, your value, and what you're worth to the marketplace. And to speak to the marketplace in a way in which they actually want to buy, learning those skills. So selling is like, there's a lot there. There's finding your offer, finding the product market match, matching market sophistication, selling it in a place where like you're actually running a business instead of doing a charity work,
Yeah.
that you're actually aligned to your dreams and your future, and you're not misaligned, and you're building something that's going to just destroy you in the long run. So there's a lot there with selling. It kind of depends on like where you're at in the entrepreneurial stage and journey, but selling is essentially finding that match, that offer, and getting paid for it and bringing that
So
value
good.
to the
Yeah. And
market.
your messaging, speaking to the specifics in the messaging piece and
Yep.
pricing. It was funny. We had a client in the shift community, actually, in the group that we run. We did a hot seat, and one of the ladies wanted to come in. And it was definitely a sell piece where she's like, well, what do I charge? I just can't seem to figure out the charge. I just want to go out and save everybody. And so really we had to go back to step one, which was shifting her identity and her deep work part that was keeping her from charging the $5,000 price point, which was totally relevant because she was adding, anywhere from $100,000 to $500,000 to a business with her expertise. And so it's totally worth $5,000, no problems. You can charge
Yeah.
more, right? She was afraid to leave her family behind. And so so many people would be like, well, just sell it for $5,000. And you could tell her that all day long, but if somebody wasn't there to help her do the deeper work, the shift work, to help her see like, hey, here's your black and white filter that you have across your eyes, and then remove it and then put in a new filter, she would never want to sell anything. You know what I mean? And so these are kind of how the dance happens between the shift and the sell through this whole framework and the dance. It's one of the things that are really valuable, like what you're talking about here, man.
So good. So good. Yeah. And again, like it never ends. It's not like, oh, you got this shit.
Yeah.
It's like she shifted for 5, right?
Yep.
But then let's say she scales and brings on her first team member. That's a leadership shift.
Yep.
She scales and she does a huge partnership. That's another shift. Like there's like, it never ends. It's this constant cycle. So cool. So that's sell. There's a lot in there. Obviously it's market validation. It's product market match. It's the copywriting. It's the pricing, the offer, like all that stuff. There's all the marketing psychology, a lot of that's in sell. But yeah,
so good.
Marketing and sales psychology, by the way. So
that's the selling piece. So let's move on to the third step of this never-ending expansive spiral. So we're talking about systematize. So what the world do you mean by systematize?
So systematize is really this is where the business starts to become a business apart from you. I mean, if you don't have systems in a business, then you just have you. And the systems is like what you can sell, if you will. So as a business owner, like if you're really pursuing financial freedom, you want to be thinking in terms of like, is this something that, am I growing something that I can eventually sell? Am I growing an asset that can generate income and provide value in the world with or without me? And yes, as the leader, you can continue to refine and enhance how it does that, but can you step away and is it still providing value without you being there day to day? And so systematize is really the beginning foundation of making sure that like the business is an entity of its own that's going to be providing that value with or without you. So often, and I think what the shift, the sell, and the systemize and scale is going to be different depending on where you're at in business.
Yep.
So obviously, like if you're just starting out in business, then shifting into the mindset of an entrepreneur, shifting into owning your value, shifting into owning your price point and your worth and knowing how to speak about that. But let's say you're doing 20, 30, 40K a month. That shift is going to be completely different. That shift is going to be more about your leadership. It's going to be more about delegation and trusting other people. It's going to be more about like the bigger vision and going after bigger dreams that you never, like 2 years ago, you never even imagined were possible.
Yeah.
It's going to be about like not being overwhelmed. It's going to be about taking care of yourself and filling your own glass and stepping away from all of the stuff over there and being present with your wife or present with your kids or your family. So, I mean, each of these are different depending on what level you're at.
Totally.
But like with systemize, depending on what level you're at, this is systemizing your marketing and your selling. It's systemizing your offer delivery. It's systemizing your back-end operations. It's really putting the step-by-step details in place so that this thing can run without you as the business owner doing everything and wearing all the hats.
So good. I have a client I'm coaching in Australia right now. He's already done 10, 15. He wanted to go to 30. As I was coaching him, I had a feeling, and so I checked in. I had a feeling that if we went to 30, everything was going to break. He's a mortgage broker. It requires a lot of paperwork. So I was like, yo, dude, let's say we turn this funnel on and you get 30K tomorrow. Can you fulfill all of it? He's like, no. I'm like, okay, we got to get you a VA before we before we do this whole lead funnel thingy. And he was like, yeah. And that week, just due to referrals, he brought in like $15,000 worth of business, like just that week. And he was like, dude, such a timely conversation. I'm so glad we have that VA. Like, it's already starting to help me so much. You're so right. I couldn't have handled 30K. And, you know, I see these posts sometimes from certain people. They'll share, 5 years ago, they scaled their business up to $1 million or 2 million or 4 million, but then it completely broke because they didn't have these systems in place to deliver, to be able to bring on the team members so they knew what was going on. Because I think so much, entrepreneurs are not, at least I'm not a systems guy. It's something that I get to learn, how to do better and better and really take that skill set on or hire somebody to do that skill set for me, right? There's multiple paths up the mountain. But it's super important because you could, like you said, you could sell and scale, and it could just completely self-sabotage and break. We had another dude, man, just kind of giving people an example, because he was at that 30K mark, every now and then hitting 50, but he kind of would hit his lower limit. He had an upper limit and a lower limit, and his lower limit was around 10K. And he's like, oh, fuck this, gotta get back to work. And he would never hire somebody. Like, you'd be like, dude, just fucking hire somebody to ship your books. And he's like, yeah. And he'd justify why he didn't need to do that. And then as we dove deeper, it was really coming back to the shift work, because he didn't trust anybody, because he had been fucked over by people he had respected in his childhood so much that he then carried that wound. And this was totally in a place of, he had no idea that was happening, right? But it was. And then that was translating, ultimately keeping him from systematizing the offer delivery, which was costing him $20,000 a month or more, right? Because he wasn't shifting at the deep level of like, hey, dude, people are good. Like, learn how to communicate your truth, learn how to set clear agreements, right? Systematize, you're good. And now he's doing that. And I think he's already sold 200 books. I think like he's selling 100 books a day or 50 books a day or some crazy number of books that are all very profitable, like $200 a book. It's crazy, man.
It's amazing.
So that's the systematize, and just giving people some context on just kind of how it's like, okay, shift, sell, systematize. And sometimes you have to like, oh, and then like filter back through really quickly. And this is why it's the ever evolving spiral. So what is this fourth step? Talk about scale. I think you talked about like hitting the gas pedal and delegation. Like, what is this scale piece?
Yeah. So again, like going back through like hitting, this is why shift is so important. It's not just an arrival thing, right? It's not like, oh, I'm done with shift now, I've got to sell. Shift is the skill, the ongoing skill day in and day out to have that, to be able to shift, right? And to get back into a place of power. Selling is the ongoing process of finding something the market wants, the value, selling it, etc. Systemizing is the foundation that supports the selling and the delivery of all of that. Sometimes that means hiring lots of people, like hiring 5 setters and 3 or 4 closers. Sometimes that means making sure your offer delivery is scalable, like it's in a group coaching format if you're a coach, or you have some evergreen stuff supporting you. Sometimes it means you have a community manager, an ops team, a VA, an executive assistant. All of those 3 things provide the foundation. If you're able to shift reliably, you have the self-awareness and the ability to shift. If you have a product that has been proven in the marketplace and people are consistently, with good numbers and good metrics, are consistently buying, the offer's attractive, they're buying the offer, and you have a product moving. Awesome. Then you can start systemizing it. That systemization provides the foundation, and scaling is really about hitting the gas pedal. It's really about, okay, cool, we have the foundation in place, the leadership foundation in place, the selling foundation in place, the systemization foundation in place to really support. And you start asking the question, okay, cool, we're doing 100K a month right now. What breaks if we do 500K a month? Or we ask the question, we're doing 10 right now, 10K a month right now. What breaks if we do 50K a month right now? And that's really where scaling is like pushing that gas pedal and just starting to ask those tough questions, identifying holes. And they're going to be with shift selling or systematize, identifying those holes, patching them up, and then putting on the gas. And so many people scale before they can shift. They scale before they have something that they can sell consistently. They scale before they have the systemization piece. There's so many people out there selling, scaling, lead flow, all those things, and they're not giving the foundation, and it is breaking people. Um, it may work for a little while, but then like they're miserable, they're burned out, they hate their job, they hate their clients, and it is a job because they haven't systemized. They're second guessing what they're selling, they're changing what they're selling at the same time that they're trying to scale, and it's just, it can get like super messy. And so obviously there's nuances. This is all just a growth journey. You're never going to be a perfect shifter. I'm not, or a perfect seller. I'm not perfect at systemizing. I'm not perfect at scaling, but the awareness that this is part of the journey and part of the game is so important.
Awesome, man. And then, no, another story, I'm just trying to give people some illustrations that comes to mind on scaling. A guy was at a place doing about 40, and he really wanted to go to like 100. And he was at a place where he's like, okay, I think we're going to go invest $15,000 into a mastermind. I was like, okay, man, that could be a good thing for you. But just a quick question, like, what are you going to learn from the mastermind? Like, what are you going to get out of it? He's like, I don't know, probably learn some lead flow stuff and sales and marketing. And I'm like, okay, well, you just invested 15K to learn sales and marketing, and it took you from 15K to 40K. So what are you going to learn there that you haven't already learned? And he's like, good point, probably nothing. I'm like, yeah. So how about you take that same $15,000 and rather than spending it on another mastermind or coaching, like information, how about you put it into ads and put your ass on the line to scale? He's like, ooh, that's scary. I'm like, exactly. And that's the place you need to go.
So shift time.
That's right. It's like you either learn to trust and respect yourself and trust what you've built and your systems that you have in place, or you don't. Otherwise, you're just going to stay in this constant loop. You call it the information trap, where you're going to learn, but you're really not going to go create what you want. And that was a big breakthrough for him.
Like, we know all the stuff,
Exactly.
but no, he's not the problem. Doing what we know, right?
Exactly.
And I love that example and story because it's so true. That's exactly why the shifting is so important. And again, shifting is that ability to play in that place where you don't know what you don't know, and to like really push those edges and push. And so many people waste so much money trying to buy the comfort of avoiding the shift. And they think more knowledge about the selling or more knowledge about the systems or more knowledge about the scaling is going to bring that comfort, and it won't. You need the inner skill of just like diving in and playing. And sure, like sometimes assimilation, like sometimes you're in an environment with everyone's doing it, you're the odd one out, you're eventually going to just like suck it up and do it, right? But it's way easier, like instead of trying to buy your way into those environments your entire life, it's way easier to just learn the skill to be the leader.
So good. It's probably a lot cheaper too, actually. Over the long run, probably a lot cheaper. So good.
Totally.
So this is kind of the framework, man. The shift, the sell, the systematize, and the scale piece.
Yep.
Guaranteed to take people way past multiple six figures. I mean, just I've seen time and time again, shift and sell takes people to six figures, like $100,000 a year. And then you bolt on the third and fourth step of the systematizing and the scaling. I mean, it's multiple six figures. But how does this start like changing a little bit? I know it's the same framework, but it's a bit different game when we start scaling seven figures and beyond. So how does this apply to shift, really scaling into seven figures and beyond?
Yeah, there's this, like, especially when you start to systematize and you bring in team members and you start to delegate and all those things. As a leader, one of the things that I think is really important is that you start to realize that your shifting, your selling, your systemizing, and your scaling actually is. So let's say your first six figures, or your first 15, 20K months, right? You're starting to hit that sustainably and consistently. That is that shift, selling, systemizing, and scaling. Most of those shifts, the selling, the systemizing, and scaling is very outward facing. It's about how can we get more leads. As a leader, you're solving those challenges. Most of your shifts are going to be how you're showing up and being seen by the world, how you're selling to the marketplace, how your product is interfacing with the marketplace, what's your webinar, your copywriting, all that stuff. Systemizing, it's about how do you support your clients. It's about how you systemize your marketing and sales, how you systemize delivery, all that stuff. And then scaling is like, how do we get more people through that flow, right? So it's very external facing. But as you as you start to scale into the higher numbers, as a leader, that shifting and selling and systemizing and scaling, it's not focusing on the market as much. It's actually focusing on your team. It's you shifting as a leader to lead your team. It's you helping your team make shifts and helping your team learn those skills. And it's you selling your team on your vision, selling your team on serving, because your team is the one interfacing with the marketplace. So you're the one that's really nurturing your team. So you're selling your team your vision all the time. You're selling them on the future. They're selling them on how they're changing lives, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then you're systemizing, like you're thinking of how can you systemize the leadership of your team? How can you systemize how your team is working and optimizing your team so that your team can effectively do shift, sell, and systemize and scale to the marketplace? And then how can you scale your team? How can you bring in more people to support your key players? How can you bring in more people to support? And that like whole paradigm shift is really huge. You're still doing shift, sell, systemize, and scaling, but it's more of an internal team focus. Not to say you don't interface with the marketplace, you do as a leader, but really the most powerful leaders, they invest in their key team members, and then their key team members are the ones that are delivering that value to the marketplace on a huge level. So really that transition happens as you start to grow and scale, and as you really start bringing in a team. It's just a whole different mindset shift. Like it's a huge internal shift because we go ham on on selling, systemizing, and scaling the marketplace, right? But then it's like, okay, at some point in time you get to do that, but your target market is your team. Reporting team.
And you talk about really great leaders make investments into kind of key people on their team. What are some of what's an example of some of those investments?
Oh, like listening, being present, giving them skills, like the internal, especially the shift skills. Like a lot of people invest in the skill of the work, right? Like, oh, let me teach you how to sell better. But like if you could give people the ability to shift and take responsibility and help your team members play on that edge and be comfortable on that edge and manage their state and their body set and their mindset, and all that stuff. Incredibly. That's what makes the difference between an A player and a B player on a team is their capacity to do that. And then when you can nurture that capacity, I mean, like the sky's the limit on what you can do, especially if you're selling the vision and they're bought in and they believe in you and they believe in what you're doing and what they're doing. And they see the payoff for them and what's in for them and all those things. And then you're helping them systematize so they're not in the weeds, and you're helping them scale, giving them support and everything. So I don't know if that answered your question, but
yeah. So are you seeing these leaders invest? Like, are they paying to send these employees, like their team members, to events to learn the skill sets, or are they they're doing their work and then so they're reaching back and holding meetings internally to then teach? Like, I'm trying to get a little bit more specific. Okay.
Yeah, all of the above. I mean,
Nice.
number one, like people are going to do what you do.
Yeah.
They're not going to do what you say. They're going to do what you do. So when you can lead by example and your way of being sets the tone, sets the standard, sets like the standard of excellence. And I don't mean that to be like, oh, you got to do everything perfect, but like the way that you own your mistakes is going to train them and teach them by your beingness of how they can own their mistakes. The way that you take responsibility, they're going to take responsibility, and you can call them to different standards and principles and teach them that by not just your words and your trainings and being present with them and caring for them and empathy and all that stuff, but by your example. So yeah.
What do you see are some common pitfalls that are keeping a lot of entrepreneurs like totally stalled out, burnt out, and kind of just reaching this place of freedom? I mean, many people are in this game to experience freedom. So like, what do you feel are some pitfalls, some mistakes you're experiencing?
Yeah, so there's pitfalls in every single one of these areas. There's lots of pitfalls. Ultimately, it comes back down to the skill of shifting, the openness to learning and the ability to shift, and really prioritizing that, because that's the 80-20, I think, for everything. Like if that's taken care of, then the other pitfalls are very short, quick, solved quickly. But so the skill of that awareness and shifting that awareness and healing stuff ongoing and playing on that edge, that's like huge. That absolutely the marketplace doesn't value, doesn't see, doesn't understand. And everything comes back to that, in my opinion. So that's the first one. And selling, if you're just starting out, not fully understanding the market state of awareness or sophistication, and not really validating your idea and your offer in a way, pre-selling it before you're trying to systemize and scale. So I think that's a big mistake that I see. And also just owning your power and your value. I'm sorry for all the background noise. There's a big event that's started out over here. But like often people underprice. They don't develop the skills to own their value and own their price point. If you're scaled pretty far and you're doing several K a month, and you have a team and everything, probably the biggest pitfall that I see with selling is not actually supporting the team doing the selling as much as you probably think you like, not really being in there in the trenches with them as a leader. I think that's really, really important. And I think a lot of dollars get lost just because there's not that ongoing accountability, mentorship, especially if you're selling something high ticket and you have a sales team and stuff, like they're in the trenches, like be there for them.
Yeah, I see that. I have a person right now going through that. He brought on a sales guy, and I was like, and before he brought on the sales guy, he was closing at 80%. The client was. So I mean, he was closing really well. Brought on the sales guy, and the closing rate went down to 10%. And they're still making a little bit of money, but not as much. It was a big cash flow issue. And so I was like, "Are you recording the calls?" He's like, "No." And I was like, "Oh, dude, we got to record the calls. How can you give him feedback if you don't know where he's dropping the ball?" And he was like, "Well, I thought I could just, he's a closer. Just be able to hand." I was like, "No, you got to lead him. You got to teach him. This is your genius. This is your world. This is your thing. Like you have to teach." And so he's picking that back up. And I think just kind of giving somebody an illustration of what you're talking about, and being in the trenches with them and supporting them. That's what it is. And I think, and I've made this mistake so many times. In fact, I almost made it on launching this podcast. Is like hire a contractor, you read the agreement, like cool, good, go, and then you don't train them, even though they're a contractor or whatever. Not creating time, bandwidth to train them on the agreement. Then it just goes into expectations, and then there's like hero and villain and victim roles, and the drama's playing out. It's fucking chaos. And then the entrepreneur, because I see a lot of people also in this place run this loop of like, I can't trust anybody. Fuck everybody. I'm just going to stay a solopreneur because nobody's going to be able to do it. Right. And then they fucking upper limit and they stall out there at that income level, whatever it is. And then they try again, and they just keep trying and trying and trying again, rather than doing what you're saying, which is be with these people. It takes way fucking longer than you think it's going to take. And just train them, like fucking love these people and train them, and being willing to run together and treat them like you'd want to be treated, I think is a really important thing here.
Yeah, so true. And especially on the selling piece. And again, like if you're running a product business, it's a bit different. But like if you're I know a lot of your audience is in coaching and expert space. So if you're selling high ticket and you got a sales team or someone like that, like you being in there to help jumpstart that belief is so important. So yeah, there's the skills, there's reviewing the calls and the skills of selling, but not just the skills. It's like just providing the place of recharging belief and certainty and vision and all those things. Good. So important, because that's like constantly getting tapped out and drained out as they're going through those on your behalf.
Awesome. And then around scaling, do you see any pitfall there?
Yeah. So systemizing, with systemizing early on, definitely biggest pitfall I see in systemizing early on is generally going to be offer delivery. There's not a very clear roadmap of what is the clear result and the steps to get that result mapped out. And so there's a lot of either one-on-one work going on, or there's fear around group. And maybe even more importantly, there's not a clear vision on where people are taking their clients. And because there's not that roadmap, then like delivery is just messy. And often people will be one and done. Like there's something to be said. Part of selling is really establishing the expectation. I mean, obviously don't go past your expertise, don't lie, but establishing the expectation that like most of this transformation is, there's some quick wins, but there's long journeys here. And like, don't be thinking like, oh, can I serve this person for 90 days? Be thinking, can I serve this person for 5 years? And so offer delivery systemization onto that, and clarity around that, and being able to scale that so that like you're not having to deliver the value over and over and over is really a huge thing I see for newer people.
Awesome.
I think the next step is scaling the marketing. That's a big nut to crack. Paid traffic, um, optimizing your numbers, optimizing like if you're doing a VSL or a webinar or sales page, all of that. Scaling the cold traffic in, the scaling the way that you warm them up, and then scaling the way that you close. That's probably the next one. And then for the really higher ups, it's scaling the delivery and the people handling, systemizing how those people handle those things, so it can be done reliably and in a way that you can trust and step away from.
Nice. And one of the big mistakes that I see people making is they're not want to be vulnerable. I feel like and this is at all levels. People who are in their 20s, people who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever level you're at, like they don't go first and be vulnerable. I don't feel like lots of people, maybe they just haven't been trained. I guess I wasn't trained. I'm just in this phase where if people aren't willing to be vulnerable with me, I don't even care if it's harsh, just please, for the love of God, be vulnerable with me, be fucking real. It drives me a little bit insane because I feel like so many people are addicted to these games and justifications and reasons rather than just saying, hey, our agreement was I was going to have this done by Friday. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. And like the proactive, like they reach out and they're like, hey, this what happened. You know, I overcommitted. I told you I would because I wanted to just like make you feel good and prove, and I'm sorry. Like, just be fucking real, like radical, real fucking leadership. And I feel like it, from the CEO to the C-suite to the business owner to the fucking contractors, if everybody would just be vulnerable, the whole process, my friends, is going to go so much smoother. But that goes all back to shift work and like identity stuff. You know what I mean?
Totally shift work. And like, so that comes down to a lot of people just aren't aware of what's going on. And I think on a deeper level, so you and I both, like, it's like a GPS, right? If you can't tell the truth of where you're starting and you're trying to get, like the example I always use, you're trying to get to New York City and you're truthfully in Denver, but you're telling yourself you're in Dallas, you're never going to get to New York City because you're bloody in Dallas. And then your GPS is like, okay, turn right, turn left, turn. And then like, if you're in Denver doing those, like you're not going to, you're going to end up like someone in Canada. Yeah. So the reason why people don't tell themselves the truth, I think one of the reasons why I don't tell myself the truth or struggle to tell myself the truth is sometimes I can't see the forest for the trees. But even on a deeper level is like, it's around things that I have a lot of guilt and shame around. And if I tell myself the truth, I can't handle that truth without spiraling into some, I don't want to say depression, but without spiraling into a massive loss of personal power. Because I haven't learned how to heal that part of myself and to actually just be there in the truth of like, yeah, I overcommitted. Sorry. Like, yeah, I was trying to prove myself to you. I overcommitted. This happened that I wasn't expecting. I'm not going to be able to, I'm not like, I need to rework the agreement. And I know that's super small, but most people are in drama. They're playing the hero, victim, villain, right?
Sure.
I don't know if you talked about that on another episode.
No, not yet. We're bringing you back on, my friend. We'll be talking about this one at depth.
Oh, sweet. Okay, awesome. One of my favorite frames. So yeah, people are playing out drama, and then drama causes discomfort and like when you're in drama, you read more drama, and then it just turns into this big mess of like multiple layers of drama and non-truth telling. And I think ultimately we do it. I do it.
Oh yeah,
everyone does it
for sure
from a place of the truth hurts, and we're trying to avoid that pain ultimately.
Yeah. You know, and I keep being reminded, you know, this game about shift, it really is just like the faster we can admit the truth that we're just using your analogy that we are in Denver, the faster that we can collapse time to plug in the right coordinates to be in Dallas. And I'm finding in my own life, there are certain times when that truth telling that I'm in Denver and then plugging in the coordinates for Dallas, just using this as an illustration, may have taken me a month, is now only taking me maybe 2 weeks. And then I continue on the journey and now it takes me 2 days. And then now it takes me like 2 minutes and certain things. Now there's layers, there's stuff within me that still may take me a month or something, but there's a lot of the stuff that I've handled, whether it's like conflict resolution, speaking my truth, contributing to the pool of dialogue, not looking out there to be seen or heard or proving anything, like these types of things. There's still some other stuff, I think, around masculinity for me that I get to dive into, what that really is in that center ground, not the fuck you, warrior, haha, man thing, and not the pussy artistic, I'm a creator thing. Like somewhere in the middle ground, I think is where I land, and I get to go on that journey soon. But yeah, like for me, like I just had a thing with contractor work, I got to like resolve conflict and use the shit that we teach, CPR. I wrote the email, I'm like, that's not the right one. Went through Feel, Felt, Found, and that was the right one. It felt good. Shipped it, and then course corrected real fast because I wasn't in hero. I didn't enter into the game as a hero or a victim or a villain, but the contractor did, damn it. And the contractor was playing, and I was still holding, up here, the space. And I just had to use a framework to hold space, and I wasn't tied if they came or go. They choose to stay, so it's all good. But yeah, man, vulnerability, my friends. I can't tell you enough. Be vulnerable. Jesus talks about this concept that the meek shall inherit the earth. I believe this means that those of us who are willing to be vulnerable have the most influence. This is both externally into the marketplace, and this is internally into the game of business, our marriages, our relationships with our children, our mothers, or fathers. Like, I feel like it goes across the board. In life. And I don't think a lot of people are talking about this whole idea of being vulnerable. They're talking about being real and genuine and authentic, but they're not talking about pulling off the fucking mask and being vulnerable from a place of like real truth. You know what I mean? Cool, man.
Yeah,
I beat a dead horse.
and really, I think, no, I love it. And I would invite people to consider that vulnerability starts with awareness, like telling the truth about your experience moment to moment. And when you can speak from that place, which is really the place of awareness, which is part of shifting, then like there's so much power because like you have nothing to prove or defend your experience. Your experience, people can't argue with your experience.
So dude, we're about to wrap this up, dude. So if somebody is feeling kind of stalled out right now, like where would you advise them to really start to really gain that momentum so that they're either adding 6 figures to the business or maybe they're kind of scaling to 7 figures and beyond?
So in the marketplace right now, I think again the most underutilized thing is the shift thing. So no matter where you're at, that's probably like one of the key things. So like look there, and then also consider selling, systemizing, scaling. Are you trying to scale before you sell? Are you trying to systemize before you sell? Are you trying to like just look at the order? Like, are you going through that flow? Yeah, it's a really general question, but if you're really stalled out, take a look in the mirror and start telling yourself the truth of your deepest fears, and like the truth that like, no, you're not working, you're doing busy work. You're like that type of thing. And then you'll start to realize like, oh, I think I'm selling, but I'm actually not trying to sell anything. I'm just hoping that people will come to me.
Awesome.
And almost all that's going to come back down to shifting. If you're growing a bigger business, like if you have a team and all that stuff, I think a lot of that, hopefully that aha of like, oh, selling, systemizing, and scaling the team, and selling the team on the vision, and helping the team learn how to shift so that they can go through this process as well, in their departments or wherever they're responsible. I think is really huge. So hopefully, like, you might be looking at your team right now and realize, man, I am not equipping my team to shift because I don't know how to shift, or whatever reason you're not, and I'm not selling my team on the vision. I'm not in their corner, like really selling them on what they're doing and why it's important and where we're going and what's in it for them. I'm not scaling the support for them or systemizing for them. So yeah, just asking those questions, I think would be really powerful.
Awesome, man.
Is that helpful?
Yeah, very helpful. And if somebody does follow your advice here and they follow, this 4-step pathway for the freedom flow framework, what do you feel is going to be the impact on their life and business?
I mean, this type of framework is the type of thing that can serve you the rest of your life. Like, it never ends. You're always, especially if you're in business, right? You're always, even if you're an entrepreneur in someone else's business, like the skill of shifting, and then persuasion, selling, and then scaling and systemizing that persuasion, it's going to serve you no matter what. Like, no matter where you are, where you're playing, whatever you're doing. If you're creating something in the world, this is going to serve you. And the awareness of like, just the awareness of something simple like this can give you kind of the framework where you can look and be like, okay, where's my holes? Where's the gap? What gets to happen on a shift level, and what gets to happen on a very practical, tangible, measurable level with selling, or with my strategy on selling, or with systemizing, or with scaling.
Nice. And on the flip side, somebody's listening to this and like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. But fuck it. I'm just going to stay on the selling and the scaling and all of that shit. Like what's at stake for these people?
Hey, I'm going to give you the gift of your experience. I'm not here to prove or defend anything. You do what you want to do. Enjoy the journey. Normally what I see is that it gets really painful and frustrating. But I think we all go through them. Sometimes we all learn lessons different ways.
So good, dude. This is what I love about you. Fucking real. Just bringing the truth. So there you have it. Mr. Jonathan Heston. Dude, fucking love you, dude. You are definitely a truth teller and bringing the light, dude, into a lot of the darkness for a lot of people and helping a lot of people. If you guys want to connect with Jonathan, you can do that at Facebook at facebook.com/jonathan.heston. So facebook.com/jonathan.heston. He has a really good Facebook group. It's called Shift. You can find that at facebook.com/groups/shift101. Or you can just go to ajamix.com/community. It'll take you right there. I'm telling you right now, it's full of amazing content around this whole Freedom Flow framework. And I know every Tuesday, he and I host a Lunch and Learn at 12 p.m. Pacific time in the group where we're covering these type of topics: the shift piece, the sailing. We're not on a fucking boat. Selling. Selling.
Dream Island.
Yeah, exactly. And the scaling. We're just like really just pouring into the group. Honestly, a lot of people have said that we should charge because we give a lot of value, but we're just really wanting to feed you guys there. So it's an amazing group. Make sure you go do that. And so if you're serious about wanting to add 6 figures to your business or scale to 7 or more, I'm telling you guys, that's the place to be. Also, if you want to buy his best-selling book, he has the book. He mentioned it. It's called The Unlimited Self. You can go to Amazon, search for The Unlimited Self. How many reviews do you have? You have a lot of reviews. A lot of people have bought that book.
Yeah, like for a self-published book, like it's done pretty well. It's been a few years since I published it. I think I'm like around, I'm over 300 5-star reviews, I believe.
Yeah, exactly.
So, pretty exciting.
Yeah, and that book's all about.
Go back and read them sometimes, right?
Yeah. And guys, that book is all about destroying limiting beliefs, uncovering your inner greatness, and living the good life. So I've read it. It's a great book. It's really fantastic. So I recommend that you head on to Amazon, grab The Unlimited Self. I'll drop all these links on the show notes. It's good. That's all I got. Jonathan, dude, thanks for coming on the show, brother. Really appreciate you, homie.
My pleasure. Love co-creating with you. Love what you're creating here.
Thank you.
It's freaking amazing. Yeah, and in that group, I'm about to go ham. I've been kind of under the ocean, supporting clients very one-on-one the last couple of years. I'm about to go ham on. I got a whole bunch of more content that I want to drop out. So join that group because it's about to come. Buckle up.
Awesome. Cool, dude. Thank you, brother.
Love you, bro.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Anthony John Amix podcast. Now, I don't know how many of you know this, but for the past 2 years, at the time of this recording anyway, I've actually been hosting a quarterly event with Jonathan in Dallas. Man, we've been in Sydney. I mean, we've been all over the world doing this event, and we've been guiding entrepreneurs through the deep work and making lasting changes in their lives and their businesses forever. It's called the Uprising Adventure, and it's a 3.5-day transformational event that helps you break through to new levels of peace, power, and profits. And this event is very unique because it blends the techniques of talk therapy and gestalt therapy and NLP and positive psychology. We get into breath work and meditation and a lot of ancient wisdom. And we take all of this and combine it into a 3.5-day experience. It's not like just going to a hotel room or anything. I mean, it really is a 3.5-day experience that shifts who you are at a cellular level. And it will help you really start to be at this place where you understand what makes you mess up when you mess up and brilliant when you're brilliant. And it's purposefully designed to put you out of your comfort zone and into your learning zone. And every person who has attended that event, they had said it's been one of the best decisions that they've ever made. And many say it's helped them collapse 5 to 10 years of therapy and personal development, like results, like tangible, tactical results into 3.5 days. And you can learn more about that event at www.uprisingadventure.com. Again, that is uprisingadventure.com. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Anthony John Amix podcast. Until next time, my friend, I'm out. Peace.
Well, that's all I've got for this episode of the Anthony John Amix podcast, but we have plenty more to help you become unstoppable in life and business. So head on over to ajamix.com for exclusive resources, information, and tools to help you break through to a new level of freedom, purpose, and success. I look forward to having you back for the next episode. Bye for now.